Okay, for the vehicle inspection test, for the Modernized skills test, we'll start the inspection in the inside of the vehicle, in cab, and we have the checklist here. So I only need to check the items that are on this checklist. Very first thing is in-vehicle engine start. So I'm going to do a safe start. I want to turn the key to the on position, check my indicator lights, ABS, warning lights, they come on and go off. I want to check my vehicle, around the vehicle, make sure nobody is leaning up or underneath the vehicle. I want to check my parking brake, make sure that it is set and that I'm in neutral. So I'll push in the clutch and have my foot covering the brake and start the vehicle. I want to check my oil pressure gauge. That shows that it's rising to normal operating range. So that's good. I want to double check my parking brake, double check neutral, slowly let my foot off the clutch, and then I can take my foot away from the brake. So I'm going to build up the air. The very first item on here is the air brake test. So I want to build up the air to governor cutout. So I'm going to raise the RPM, and I'm going to watch my gauges and see when the needles stop moving. The governor cutout should be between 120 and 140 psi. So my gauges are at 120 psi, just a hair over, and it stopped moving, so the governor has cut out. So for the air brake test, the first thing I want to do there is build the governor. The second thing, I'm going to check my applied pressure leakage rate for 1 minute. Make sure that I lose no more than 4 psi in 1 minute. So for that, I'm going to turn off the engine, put the key in the on position. I'll put the vehicle in a low gear so it doesn't roll off. Release my parking and trailer brakes. And then I'm going to fully apply the service brake. Wait till the needles settle. It looks like I'm at about 105 psi. I want to watch that for 1 minute and make sure that I lose no more than 4 psi in 1 minute. You want to hold the brake steady. It should be pushed all the way to the floor. You don't want to lift your foot and push. That will evacuate the air and give you a false reading on that 1 minute test. And again, you only need to check the items that are on the checklist. You need to hold that for a full minute. You can use your watch or a timer, your phone. All right, it's been a minute, and it looks like I've lost about 3 psi. So I'm about 102 psi, started out at 105. That is less than 4 psi. I did not lose more than 4 psi in 1 minute, so that is working properly. All right, the next test is the low air warning light and buzzer, making sure that those come on above 55 psi. So I'm going to pump the brakes down, and I want to see when the lights come on and the buzzer. So we're at 65 psi. The warning lights and buzzer has come on. It's above 55, so that's operating correctly. The next thing I want to do is the pop out test. I want to see when these valves pop out or close. That should happen between 20 and 45 psi. So I'm going to watch the valves and up my gauges and continue to pump this down until the valves pop out. Okay, the valves just popped out. The air pressure is at 30 psi. That is operating correctly. So the air brake check is good on this vehicle. Next is the parking and service, or parking and trailer brakes. First I need to build the air pressure. So I'll start the engine and then check some of these other things on the list while that's building. lighting indicators inside the dash here. I'm going to check, make sure the lights come on and go off as I turn the switches on and off. So my left turn indicator came on and off. My right turn indicator goes on and off. My four-way flashers go on and off. And my hazard lights. And then I will check my high beam indicator. So that has come on and then off. All right, now if this vehicle had DEF, which this does not, but if it did have DEF, I would check and make sure that the fluid level is above a quarter tank. And I already inspected the ABS light when I turned the key on to start the engine originally. Okay, so that's all the lights. Next I'll check my emergency equipment. So I have a fire extinguisher. I check that, make sure that it's securely mounted, it's not damaged, it's properly rated and charged fully. Also want to check and make sure that it's not missing any safety devices like pins to keep that from discharging. I would check my spare fuses, make sure I have spare fuses, the right size and kind and type, and that they're in operating condition. And then I would check and make sure that I have at least 3 red reflective triangles, make sure that they are in good condition, they're not cracked or damaged, in usable condition. Next, I would check my windshield and traffic monitoring devices. So the windshield, I'm checking to make sure that it's not cracked or damaged. There's no rock chips. It has a good seal around, so it's not leaking. And there's no illegally placed stickers or anything obstructing my vision. For traffic monitoring devices, I've got my mirrors here. I want to check and make sure that they are in place and clean and properly adjusted for me as the driver. Next, I've got my windshield wipers and washers. The wipers, I want to check and make sure that they are in good condition, they're cleaning the windows, they're not damaged or missing, and that the washer is spraying fluid and that they are operating correctly, so I turn that on. Alright, so the wipers and washers appear to be working as they should be. Next is my heater and defroster. So I want to turn the fan on, turn the heat on, and then put it to defrost. I want to visually check and see, listen for the fan, and check and make sure that that's blowing. That is, so the defroster is working properly. Then I'll move the switch over to the heater and check and make sure that the heater is operating correctly, which it is. So that is good. I also have the horns. So the electric horn is working properly, and we have an air horn, and that is working properly, so the horns are good. So now I have pressure again. I'm going to check my parking brake and my service brake. First, I'm going to check my tractor parking brake and release my trailer brakes. I'll put this in a low gear and then tug against that, so I'm going to let the clutch out. So I put some pressure against the brakes and they help, so that's operating correctly. Next, I'm going to check my trailer brake. So I'm going to set my trailer brake and release my tractor brake, the parking brake, and do the same thing. Let the clutch out slowly, tug against that. So I pulled against that, that worked properly. Next is my service brake. For the service brake check, I want to pull forward 5 miles per hour and apply the brakes. The vehicle should come to a stop. And I'm also checking to make sure that it is not pulled to the right or the left when I'm doing that stop. So, again, I want to go about 5 miles an hour. So I'm going 5 miles an hour, pushing in the clutch, coming to a stop. The vehicle did not pull to the right or the left, and the vehicle stopped properly. So my service brake check is good. Okay, so that's everything on my list for the in-cab inspection. So I'm going to set my parking brake, and then I'm going to ask my examiner here to help me with the external light check. So we do the light operations check, and it says to check all external lights. So I'll have my examiner go out, ask my examiner to go out to the front of the vehicle, and we're going to check the front lights and the passenger side lights on the truck and the trailer. After that, I'm going to ask him to go to the rear of the trailer on the driver's side and check the rear of the vehicle and the driver's side indicator lights, and making sure those are all working properly. So, can you help me with that? Can you go over to the front?
Yes, I can.
So I'm going to turn the engine off just so they can hear me better. All right. So right turn indicator, left turn indicator, four-way flashers, so that's my headlights, high beams, my clearance lights, and my marker lights. Good. Can you go to the back of the vehicle? So this time we'll check the rear of the vehicle and the driver's side lights. Okay, left turn, right turn, four-way flashers, brake lights, tail lights, clearance lights. All right, thank you. Okay, next on the list is front of the vehicle and engine area. First item is lenses. I want to check all the lenses on the front of the vehicle, everything that I can see. Headlights, turn indicators, clearance lights, marker lights, and making sure that they're all securely mounted and that they are the proper color. Next is engine fluids. So I'm going to open my hood. Start over here. They're all located over here. To start, I'm going to check my coolant level. I'm going to use the sight glass on the side here, making sure that it's between the add and the max lines, which that is, so that's good. Next, I'll check my power steering fluid. I want to check and make sure that that's between the minimum and the max lines. Again, I would use the sight glass on the side. And this is my oil level, or my oil dipstick. I would check my oil level by pulling the dipstick out, wiping it off, reinserting it, pulling it out, and checking to make sure that it is between the add and full lines. All right, so that is all the fluids. Next, it says fluid and air leaks. So I want to check the entire vehicle, including, or the engine area, including the radiator, the engine, transmission, underneath, everywhere, checking for leaks, dripping leaks, and seepage. I want to check and make sure that I don't see anything like that. There's nothing pulling up on the floor or on the ground underneath the vehicle. So that all appears to be good. I want to check all my hoses and for leaks, as well as air leaks and any fluid leaks. So I'm checking all the hoses in this area. Next is the steering system. For the steering system, I've got my column, my steering box, and my linkage, so my pitman arm, drag link, control arms, and tie rod. I'm checking all of these parts to make sure they're securely mounted, no loose or missing nuts and bolts. The joints are all in good condition, no cracks or damage, no missing castle nuts or cotter pins, and everything is properly lubricated and connected as it should be. Next is the steering axle. I would check my tires. The tires, I'm checking the sidewalls and the top for condition. I want to make sure that there's no cracks, damages, bulges, or abrasions. There's no chunks of tread missing that would expose plies inside the tire. And no screws or nails or anything that would cause leaks. I also want to check the minimum tread depth. So on all the major tread grooves here, I want to use a tire tread depth gauge and make sure that I have a minimum of 4/32 on the steer tires and a minimum of 2/32 on all the remaining tires of the vehicle. And then I would also check the inflation. So I would check the valve here, the valve stem, make sure it's not bent, cracked, or damaged. It has a cap, it's in place and tight. And I would use an air gauge to check the pressure, make sure it's at the proper level. These tires are around 100 psi. Next, I've got rims. So the rims, I want to check and make sure I have a good bead and seal with the tires. It's not dented, there's no cracks, and there's no illegal repair welds. I also want to check and make sure there's no distortions or elongated bolt holes where these studs come through the rims. Next are lug nuts. The lug nuts, I'm checking to make sure that they're all present and that they're all tight. They're not cracked or damaged and or worn out. And also checking the studs, making sure that they are not damaged. Also checking for signs of looseness, such as shiny threads or rust trails. That again could indicate looseness. Next, we have spring mounts, airbags, and shocks. This vehicle is not equipped with airbags, so I do not need to inspect that. Our spring mounts are here and at the back. We're checking the mounts to make sure that they're not cracked or damaged. They're securely mounted to the vehicle frame, and there are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. Checking the springs. So we have our leaf spring. Checking the leaf spring, make sure that it's not cracked or damaged, it's not shifted or scissoring, and is securely connected to the mounts with the bolts, and their bushings are good. Also want to check the shock absorber. Checking to make sure that it's connected securely on the top and the bottom. Bushings are in good condition, no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not dented, cracked, or damaged, and it's not leaking. Next, we have brake hoses and leaks. So here's the brake hose. I want to inspect that, make sure it's not cracked, bulging. It is in good condition and can supply air to the brake system, and is securely connected on both ends, and of course not leaking. Then we've got brake contaminants. So I'm checking inside the drum and making sure that there are no brake contaminants such as oil or debris that could cause the brakes to work improperly. Next, we're checking the side of the vehicle. So I'm looking at the entire side of the vehicle for any lenses and reflectors, making sure that they are all connected properly, they're not cracked or damaged, they're the proper color, and all reflectors are clean, reflective, and properly affixed to the vehicle. Next, traffic monitoring devices. So I would check my mirror mounts, make sure they're connected securely to the vehicle, they're not bent or damaged, and then I would check my mirrors, making sure that they are clean, they're not cracked or damaged, and no illegally placed stickers. Okay, next is battery. So the battery box is on the other side. So I'm not able to easily access the battery box, so I'll just do a description. Inside, we've got a cover in place and it's properly attached so that that's not going to come off. Inside, I want to check the batteries to make sure that they are securely mounted. They're not cracked or damaged or bulging. They're not leaking. And then also checking the wires and terminals, making sure that they are properly attached, clean, and there's not excessive, or there's no corrosion on the terminals. And then the wires coming out and that I can see, I'm checking to make sure that they are not, they don't have any exposed wires, they're not chafing or shorting out. Next is the fuel tank. That's over on the other side here. Okay, the fuel tank, I'm checking the entire tank to make sure that it's not cracked or damaged. There's no leaks anywhere on the tank or the lines coming in and out of it, as well as the fuel cap. Checking to make sure that that's there and that it has a proper seal on the inside of the cap. Next, we've got frames. So I'm going to check the frame of the tractor and the trailer. So I'm checking the length of the frame, making sure that it's not cracked, damaged, bent, Cross members are securely mounted. There's no loose or missing nuts or bolts. No illegal repair welds. And then on the trailer, I'm checking the frame down the side, that it's not cracked or damaged or bent. Also checking the cross members underneath and the floor, making sure there's no holes or anything there, and everything is properly working. Okay, next is for combination vehicles only. I've got the air and electrical lines and connectors. So I'll start with my air lines. I have my service and my emergency and my service lines. I want to check these all the way on both ends, making sure that it's not kinked, cracked, or damaged, and there's no holes, nothing to indicate that it's worn out. I want to check the connections on the trailer side. So these are the glad hands, making sure that these are connected properly. There's no leaks where the hoses connect to the glad hands. And inside here, I want to check and make sure that it has a good rubber seal and it will not be leaking. So that's on both of these. And then I would check the side of the tractor where the air lines are connected, making sure that there's no leaks, it's securely fastened, and everything looks good there. Next, I've got my electrical line. I want to check that all the way through, all the way for the length of it, making sure that it's not cracked or split, there's no exposed wires, and nothing's dragging against any of the other parts of the vehicle here. And want to make sure there's no illegal repairs such as electrical tape repairs. Then I want to check both ends, making sure that that's plugged in all the way, the cap is in place, it has a little hook on there. That helps keep that from pulling out. Make sure that's securely connected there and on the tractor side. Okay, moving on, we've got the fifth wheel skid plate. So the fifth wheel skid plate is here. It's not cracked, damaged, or bent. It's properly lubricated, and it's securely connected to the frame with the platform. Then we have the kingpin, apron, and gap. So we'll start with the apron. So the part of the apron that I can see, I want to check and make sure that it's not bent, cracked, or damaged, it's not grooved, it's properly lubricated, and that there's no daylight gap between the fifth wheel skid plate and the apron. And then the kingpin is underneath from the back side. We can look inside the opening of the fifth wheel skid plate, make sure the kingpin is in there, it's securely connected to the apron. It's not bent, cracked, or damaged, or worn too thin. Next, we have the locking and safety devices. So we have the locking jaw. Well, we're right there. You want to check and make sure that it's not cracked or damaged. It's securely locking the kingpin into the fifth wheel. And we also want to check and make sure that there's not excessive play inside there, that the locking jaw is locking the kingpin in snugly. Also, we have our mounting bolt. That helps secure everything. So we want to check all the mounting bolts, making sure that they're not missing, they're not cracked or damaged, they're all in place and tight. Then we have the release arm. The release arm, we want to make sure that that's all the way in the locked position. It's not cracked or damaged. And if there was a safety latch, we would inspect that and make sure that that is working properly. Okay, next is the side of trailer. So we've got or trailer only. Next is landing gear and clearance. So for the landing gear, I want to check the landing legs and supports, making sure they're all securely connected, they're not cracked or damaged or broken, securely mounted. The landing pad is flat and all the way in the full raised position when we're operating the vehicle. The hand crank is in the stowed position, and it is able to extend and retract the landing gear. Also want to check the cross members, making sure that those are in place and connected properly, not cracked or damaged. Then we want to check the clearance, making sure that there is plenty of room between here so that the mud flaps and the frame do not hit the supports for the landing gear during turns. Next is reflective tape. I want to check the reflective tape down the side of the trailer. It should be covering 50% of the trailer. It should be clean and affixed properly to the side of the vehicle. Next is the rear of trailer. Okay, we are checking the lenses and reflectors. So I want to check the lenses for the clearance and tail lights, brake lights, all the lenses on the back of the vehicle, making sure that they're securely connected, they're clean, not damaged, and they are all the proper color. And then we would check the reflectors on the back of the vehicle, which we have corner reflectors on the doors and then reflector tape along the back. I want to make sure that that's securely affixed to the vehicle and it's clean and reflective. One other thing with this trailer, it does have a sliding tandem, so we want to check the release arm here, make sure that that's securely in place, and our locking pins, making sure that the locking pins are in place and keeping the axles from sliding. And that is everything on the list here, so we are done with the inspection.